So clearly, I think if the Minnesota Timberwolves could actually find a way to go back in time, maybe jump in a DeLorean and go back to the future and figure out how to not actually pull the trigger on that Karl Anthony Towns trade, which brought him Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. Now, as somebody that has watched every single Minnesota Timberwolves game this year, and quite frankly, almost every single Minnesota Timberwolves game in their history, I can tell you that the Timberwolves have certainly made a lot of mistakes over the years when it comes to their player personnel moves. This was just yet another example. You got all the way to the Western Conference Finals. You know what we should do? We should actually just go ahead and tear it down. Well, on today's NBA rundown, it's not all bad for the Minnesota Timberwolves, who currently find themselves in the 8th spot in the Western Conference. Sure, it's a shell of the team it was last year, but I want to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves' future, which was on display last night at Madison Square Garden with one Rob Dillingham. Now, on this podcast, I have indeed talked about Rob Dillingham a little bit over the past 6 months. And I believe that the Minnesota Timberwolves' future is not as bleak as a lot of people think it is. Now, clearly, one of the reasons I actually believe that is the way Rob Dillingham plays basketball is vastly different than what you would get from a Julius Randle, where basketballs go to die. The basketball hits Julius Randle's hands, and then it just simply stops. There's very little rotation that actually comes out of it outside of the fact that Julius Randle is either going to shoot a shot or turn the ball over. That is where we are with Julius Randle at this point. It's not that I don't like Julius Randle as a basketball player. I've actually always liked him. It's just a question of fit. What this team needs is not to actually slow the game down. This team actually needs to speed the game up. And that's exactly what you get with a Rob Dillingham. Now, that is a different style offense, which certainly will affect the team's ability to play defense in the way they want to play defense. I mean, clearly, Chris Finch's strategy has backfired so far this year, which has included the attempt to actually slow the game down even more than it was when Karl Anthony Towns was on this roster. And, while maybe that is actually happening and working to some extent, it is not leading to more wins than the team had last year at this time. It is clear to me, and I'm sure it's clear to a lot of you out there, that if you play Rob Dillingham significant minutes, what you'll end up with is a team that actually runs, believe it or not, up and down the court efficiently with significantly more advantages to the way the team can play in the future. I want you to all take a look at what the Memphis Grizzlies are actually doing with their offense. There is no traditional pick and rolls in their offense at all. It is basically freed the court up so that players can actually move without the ball. It also allows the ball handler to not have to deal with unnecessary picks. Look, the NBA has become so predictable with the pick and roll. Yes, there are those teams that have perfected it over the years. Just take a look at the Joker in Denver. In terms of what this all means, though, for the Minnesota Timberwolves and Rob Dillingham, it has to start with head coach Chris Finch actually playing Rob Dillingham more than 8 minutes a game. Now, I know Dillingham was out for about a month and a half because of an ankle injury. Now he's back. He played a whopping 13 minutes last night at Madison Square Garden. He ended up scoring 9 points. And if you watched any of that game, you know that the way Rob Dillingham plays is actually exciting. Not only is it exciting, you could actually see that the Minnesota Timberwolves as a whole, with the young legs and speed and Rob Dillingham's ability to create offense on the fly, is of great benefit to this Minnesota Timberwolves team. From a structure standpoint, they will certainly have to change how they play with Rob Dillingham in the game. But at this point, as they sit, just a game above 500, it's important that the Minnesota Timberwolves actually go ahead and make a change at this point. If they're going to ultimately be successful at the end of the day, the Timberwolves, who are 22-19, still have the opportunity to salvage this year. Now, that would probably include moving Julius Randle before the trading deadline. At what they actually get back for him at this point, I'm not sure exactly who wants Julius Randle, why they would want Julius Randle, and what the Timberwolves would be willing to give up to actually trade Julius Randle, what they would get back in exchange. Now, we know that Utah has a bunch of players that would actually fit in nicely with this Minnesota Timberwolves team. Basically, what I'm saying is if the Timberwolves are actually going to be successful this year, they need to change their style of offense from an old school, slow down, pick and roll. It's obvious to everybody what's happening. There's very little player rotation or player movement without the ball. That needs to be changed almost immediately. One of the best ways they can do that is to actually give the rookie Rob Dillingham a significant amount of playing time. Now, one of the other options is also trading Julius Randle for like a Colin Sexton or another point guard that's out in the marketplace, which might not be such a bad idea, just considering where we are with Mike Conley and his legs at this point. Look, I love Mike Conley. He's been a great player in the league for years. He has clearly skied all the way down the backside of Career Mountain. It's time for Mike to either go into television, radio, and or coaching at this point. There doesn't appear to be enough left in his legs to actually be a major contributor to this Minnesota Timberwolves team. So option one is really clear, which is play Rob Dillingham significant minutes, Chris Finch, every single night. I'm not talking about 10 minutes. I'm not talking about 15. I'm saying play him a minimum of 20 minutes a night. Get him the experience he needs to actually thrive in the NBA. And I think what you'll see with a Minnesota Timberwolves team, which is less reliant on a Julius Randle, more reliant on an up-tempo offense with a Rob Dillingham, is you'll see exciting basketball once again brought back to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I'm not taking anything away from Anthony Edwards, who has just been fantastic, as we know. But clearly, he is being doubled and tripled and quadruple teamed at times. So a player like Rob Dillingham, once he becomes established in the league as a major threat, will be of a huge advantage to what Anthony Edwards is actually going to be able to become. All right, those are some thoughts on the Minnesota Timberwolves at this point. Love to get your opinions. Please go ahead and drop those in. For the NBA Rundown, I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the